good few messages. So, welcome everybody. And this is something that we have every Friday. It's called Friday Feels Live. And I've had the pleasure of having lovely ladies on over the last couple of weeks, sharing inspiring stories and also, I suppose, how they've pivoted and how they've adapted and changed with COVID, I suppose, because if there was one word to sum up 2020 to me anyway, it's definitely change. And I suppose that nothing is certain. So we have the lovely Moira Geary. So welcome, Moira. Thank you so much for
so much, Irene, for having me. It's lovely to be on.
Delighted. So you're the recombobulator. So I suppose we'll give a little bit of a background. We've met a good few years ago now, but I suppose, my background nurse. You were giving a lovely talk at one of our yearly events, and it was like magic listening to you. So you were giving a talk, and you were speaking about communication skills, and I was absolutely mouth on the ground. So I suppose when I went into that room, I was like a swan. Everything looked fine. I'd gone back to work with baby number 3 and juggling unsociable hours, and also just going back after being off for so long. And I remember you sharing a few practical tools, and I remember it just blew my mind. So that's how it all started, but we can go into that in a little while. But I suppose just to give you an introduction, you are the recombobulator.
Yes.
So yes.
So do you want me to do that piece? Yeah. All right. Okay. Sorry, darling. Yeah. So yeah, I am, and actually, just even to where did the word recombobulator come from? So for about 5 or 6 years ago, I was trying to explain to people what I do, and because, as you know, and anybody else that follows QTT and the work that I do, it's very hard to put in a nutshell what I do. Or even clients, when I was working one-to-one, when they'd leave, people would say to them, "Well, what happened?" And they go, "I don't know. I just feel completely different, but I actually don't know what happened." So it's very hard to explain. So this word discombobulated, I heard it about 5 times over the period of maybe 3 weeks, and I thought, that's what I do. I actually recombobulate people. So that was why I branded myself as the recombobulator. That's where it came from. But really what it is that basically all of us, there's nobody that gets away with not living within the constraints of what goes on between their ears, because we're all human and we all have past experiences and we all have aspirations and we all have visions for what we'd like our lives to be. And unfortunately for all of us, we've had different things that have happened to us where not necessarily that they were because trauma, and when I say trauma, I don't necessarily mean big trauma, but any experience we've had where we've been kind of thrown off kilter a bit, it's not the experience that's the issue, it's how we respond and react to it. And when we respond and react, that can really create a lot of limitations for us in life. And for anybody that's ever been overwhelmed or has procrastinated or has self-sabotaged or has felt stress or felt worry, that's based in usually 99% of it will come from their past experiences and the meaning they put on that. So that's why all of us need a little bit of recombobulating. And also, I suppose the name is a little bit to keep a little bit of a fun element in it, because I think people can get very hung up and very serious about when things are stuck or whatever. And I'm not for a second saying that, you know, or disrespecting the fact that a lot of us can find things difficult. However, I am never upset or worried when I'm working with a client, because I always know what the end of the story is going to be, and it's always a good ending. So I would never get sucked into feeling upset when I'm working with a client or feeling upset around people's stuff, because I know that everybody can have freedom if they choose it.
Mm-hmm.
With a little bit of help.
And I love that. And that is such a beautiful word, isn't it? Freedom, because like it's, you know, when you get it and when you have moments of it and when it comes, it's just the most beautiful experience. It really, really is. And he said it can be such a gentle way, but yet it's such a profound way of getting there, getting that state of freedom. It's like, God, I can nearly kind of breathe again, you know, and I can kind of see, you know, the world through different eyes. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's fabulous. So you have a lovely free, lovely community online in Facebook. It's called the Recombobulators. And I suppose what's really hit me this year is the fact that it has grown so massively in such a beautiful way. And I suppose it's really opened my eyes, and we kind of had this discussion beforehand, that now more than ever, you know, I loved your bios, that people are seeking ways of feeling freedom, you know, that there's this beautiful new wave. And I think that is definitely highlighted by the amount, you know, because I suppose going back, if you go back just a little bit, you know, none of us knew, like I'm a nurse and your background is nursing as well. And when SHIT hit the fan back then, we didn't know what to do. And it was lovely even before the whole lockdown and before things got to that scale. You were there and you're like, look, I don't know what way things are going to go, but look, I'm going to be getting up every morning at 7:30 and I'm going to do a meditation, just something, you know, just to keep us focused, keep us connected, and that lovely sense of community. And it was like nearly before that wave hit, you know, it was lovely. It was nearly like we're in this lovely container. It was beautiful. And it just goes to show, I suppose, with COVID, you know, the transition that you were just, it's just amazing to see that even doing that back then, that has just grown, that the amount of people, you know, that have joined us. So I think it's over 7,000 now that are in that group.
Yeah, I think about 7,300 or 400 in there. And what's interesting about that, Irene, is that a lot of people that joined, and I know that a lot of people are watching. I'm sure if I look at the comments that a lot of people are watching are actually in the group. So if you are, give a shout out for the group. But also, like a lot of the reason why the group has grown is because people have brought in their sisters, their mothers, their brothers, their friends, because even though it's free and even though we're turning up, first of all, sense of community, massive. We're all driven to need and desire to be part of something. But because it's a community that there is absolutely no judgment and there's no negativity, even though there's nothing wrong with being negative at times. But also what's huge in there is the transformations of people that came in knowing nothing, have followed the principles that we share every morning. And what I do is I invite people. I'm not telling people you have to do X, Y, and Z. But what I am saying is that I've done it. I know you've done it, Irene. I know that all the QTT practitioners have done it. I know loads of the Wealthy Minds students have done it. So it was lovely to be able to share it free for people going through COVID. And the transformations are just unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. I mean, it's just fabulous to watch it. And like, it really makes me like, thinking of getting up in the morning, there's no problem getting up in the morning, and it's just, I mean, basically it's my life purpose, and I know that. But it's just lovely to have an audience that are happy to turn up every morning at 7:30, Monday to Friday, and to join in and have a bit of crack and a bit of a laugh, and we get serious about what we're going to focus on for the day, and then we have a lovely heart coherence connection, which is really important, and then we do the 15-minute meditation, and it's just been a tonic for everybody, me included. Yeah,
it has. And even this week I've noticed a massive shift. Like this morning I literally, so I suppose just explain to people, so it's lovely, it's just a lovely chat. You pick a concept, you might find something, but you've actually did a masterclass in there this week, and there was just even the growth in a couple of days. So even this morning when I tuned in, literally I saw all of us in like pods of different colors, you know, we're all in our own bubbles, and this was just, it was like we were on a merry-go-round. It was just fabulous. But I think what it is that lovely sense of community that you said, that we're all connecting from a really beautiful space, and it just sets you up for the day. And I find it, I know the days I do it versus the days I don't, and it just goes to show that, you know, sense of community and also sharing all these processes can make a massive impact. And then what I love about the group as well is that one person might get an aha, which triggers another person and triggers another, and it's like light bulbs, it's like ding, 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 you know.
And what also is really important, that people are encouraged, like, I don't have all the answers. I'll come up with a concept and I'll give you my slant on it. But what I love is when other people come in and they're sharing their ideas on it. And that really is having, and people are coming in going, oh my God, I never thought of it like that, or I never would have looked at it that way, which I think is huge. But I think this week, yes, has been quite profound. And I know I did a masterclass, and in the masterclass, I taught some concepts that I wouldn't normally teach to people that just come in cold or they're not on a paid program. But I just thought, look, let's go for it and see what'll happen. And I know I taught similar before, but I was really, really taken back by the way people took it on, because it wasn't necessarily, and again, what the upshot of it, I suppose, really to bring it to the point I'm trying to make, is that this morning so many people were talking about forgiveness, and we're asking for a little bit more help and support and guidance on how do you do that. Because I suppose what I was teaching was, for me, and I know it for anybody that I've ever taught it who's truly stepped into this, forgiveness is not about letting somebody off the hook, or forgiveness is not really about the other person. It's about setting us free from what we're feeling related to whatever the situation was that went on, where we where we were hurt, or we were disappointed, or we were whatever, fearful. And as long as we're carrying that around all our lives, then basically we're the ones that are in the prison. And the other person, who we believe is the perpetrator of the, yes, the action, but they're not the perpetrator of the feeling we're feeling, because that's us reacting to what happened. So many people got it this week, and I know already that they've let go, and they are actually stepping into that freedom. And then what was lovely was there was so many questions about, you know, can I tell me more, tell us more, can we do a masterclass specifically on that? And like, that's really exciting. Like, that is just amazing to be able to see people, you know, to teach them some concepts, you know, a bit of a paradigm shift, another perspective. Why not look at the world from another angle, you know, and just fit that concept on and see, does it help you? And then to see the reaction and the response coming back, it's just amazing. Amazing.
It is. And like, it even nearly sums up kind of how I was, you know, when I came in cold as well, when I first met you, to compare to my life now. So I suppose the last, you know, and it really is that people don't realize, I suppose, the freedom that they can have. And sometimes we're so stuck in the story, and we're so busy being busy, and we're so busy being distracted, that we kind of don't realize, it's like, well, this is what it is, this is who I am, this is my, you know, that we don't realize actually, you know. I read a thing, it was like, you know, this is your story, this is your movie, you know, this is your life, you know, feel free to do a plot twist at any time. And I thought that was just a fabulous concept, because a lot of the time I think we can be playing support roles or support acts, and kind of even assigned a role or told, well, look, you'll be this type of, you know, you'll be a nurse, or you'll be the, you know, the role. And we kind of just sometimes unconsciously fall into them, or we kind of to get stuck in them and stuck in a rush. And then we kind of fenced in. I always say it's like an electric fence, that we kind of see the pastures could be greener on the other side, but we don't really know how to get there. And we're afraid of the pain of going through it, or what people perceive us, and what we would even perceive of ourselves, you know. So, but it's just, I think there was a lovely, even, of course, this has just been a very difficult year for a lot of people, but to see, I suppose, the transformations. And what the biggest thing is, that it's the internal shifts. And that's what I find, is when you change internally yourself, like how you speak to yourself, you know, how you view yourself, how you view the world, or how you, as you said, a paradigm shift can be just massive. Because if they see something, if you can't unsee it. And I suppose, you know, the only way we live our past or we live our future is in our head. It's an imagination, it's something we're creating, and we don't actually realize that sometimes, to kind of realize them when someone actually just, you know, well, what about this? Or have you, it's nearly like you're widening the lens, that they're so focused in on one thing that they actually are missing out on the bigger picture. And it's just the freedom that is just amazing.
Absolutely. And just to say, if anybody's watching, they're going, yeah, it's all fine and well, you're talking away about that, but how do you do it? And that's usually what people say is, you know, how do you do it? But just even what you've described there, if people just can get the concept that, you know, if you're feeling that you're living in a space where, you know, you're reactive all the time, basically what's happening there is that you're unconscious that you're unconscious. You're not even aware that you're unconscious. So even if you're listening to what Irene's just said there now, basically what you've done, you've just been given an idea that there might be another way, but you're just coming out of that unconsciousness that you're unconscious. Then when you come out and you're actually consciously unconscious, that's kind of good, because you're kind of aware that you were unconscious. And then you move up into a little bit like what we're talking about the masterclass, even though I didn't describe it this way, but it's bringing you up into an elevated view of what's going on. And that's where you become conscious that you're conscious. And that's really living from an elevated view. And there is another layer beyond that, but we won't even talk about that. But if we can bring freedom, really starts when you're up here and you're looking at the dynamic of what's going on in your world and all the people in it and all that's happening and all the reactions. And when you're looking at it up here with a couple of other concepts to go with it, you're going to look down at what's going on and you're going to go, oh my God, lads, I'm just seeing this from a completely different angle. And I'm noticing I don't need to react to it in the same way that I've done before. And exactly what you said, once you know, you can't unknow. So you're by default going to have more freedom in your life. Just by default, you're going to have to. Yeah.
Totally. And sometimes I'm just laughing, because it's like nearly like, and it's not belittling, but Coronation Street, sometimes you kind of realize it's like, I don't have to live through drama, or, you know, I can just walk out the door, you know, or close, and or even just flick the switch. And I know that sounds very simple and very easy, but sometimes when you learn the lesson, I think that's what I love about this as well, you know, and the concept of this is like, everything we go through, there's lessons we learn about ourselves, you know, we grow, and we, you know, there's, you know, there. And I love it sometimes, as you said, because you can show people that, God, how strong you are, or how courageous you are, or you've learned something about yourself, about how important, like, values is a big thing, that, like, how love is so important to you, that you only gain, I think, from letting things go that no longer serve you. I think when the time is right, when you gain the lessons and learnings, and when you're ready to do it, but certainly I remember, I suppose, going back to when I was sitting inside. So I had just literally gone back to work, and I remember sitting there, and you were there, like, as a fairy godmother. There was a few concepts you taught, and they just were life changing for me. So I suppose I joined, like, that positive recombobulation. Like, it was like I was seeking. I was like, oh my God, the relief. So doing more and more and more, where I actually went off and I trained in the modality. But and I loved that. It was such a gentle road and just a gentle process that I like. And I think that as a human being, sometimes we learn that, I think it's experientially learning and realizing that when I got the relief, I was actually hungry for more. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, but it's the freedom that it gives you, some of the tools, because sometimes it's like, the definition of insanity is, Irene said, is, you're doing the same thing and you're thinking you're getting the same results. And I suppose we know that with, like, as moms talking to our children, we're saying the same things at the same time. And even at work, I'm nursing, and it's like, how can I communicate better, or how can I get my message across, or how can this change me? And you don't know any other way, but it's like the little tools that you have and you put in your toolbox, and as I call it, my tool belt, and you can pull them out. They can just be so freeing. I remember the first time, because I know your boys are a little bit older, but when Kate was a teenager, I remember using a little tool. It's one word, but I remember she wanted to do something, and I was trying to get my point of view across. And it was the first time I used it, and I remember her looking at me in the car, looking back as if she just couldn't believe it. And it was so nice because there was no arguing as such. It was being able to get my point across, and it's the agreement frame. But
I was just going to say, what was the agreement frame?
I remember the weeks. I can still see.
Magic.
Like, and I remember I was like, Irene, keep your SHIT together, like, cause I was like, don't blow it now, it's working. But it was just so beautiful that she could,
on both sides.
And it was just that simple word where you were acknowledging her, but also getting her to see it from your point of view. And it was just brilliant. It really, really was. So but I do remember that. I remember that light bulb, kind of going. I was like, I still remember that. It was just fabulous. And I find, I suppose, communicating how, I suppose, kind of tuning into that version of me compared to now, it's just how I communicate better, and how I know that life still happens, events happen, but I'm much better at responding or dealing and kind of finding a solution quicker. And also, I suppose, knowing that I have the tools, and I suppose knowing that I have the support structure, because there's another thing that I really loved about being in this community is the friendships that I've built, and the colleagues that I have.
QTT.
Our QTT buddies. Just been fabulous. It really, really has. And that even though, we have this thing, we have accountability buddies, and it's lovely all throughout the country, or even somewhere in the UK, that we connect daily, or whatever, weekly or fortnightly, and we swap around. But a lot of the time we'll still keep in contact, and I'm still in contact with my original buddy, and it's just fabulous. And it's another way of, I suppose, that sense of community, and just realizing that there are people out like-minded like you out there as well, and it doesn't have to be in your community, because like we have now technology like WhatsApp, we can so it's amazing when you're open to it, like what can come in, I suppose, but certainly I remember sitting there going, oh my God, how am I going to manage? I remember, I suppose, I was sitting there going, how am I going to manage 3 small kids, back to work, juggling shift work, and then you showed up with your talking about communication. And there was one lovely concept you shared. It was called and I love the words that you have for them. Like if you actually, I was writing a little reflection. I was like literally you were like a fairy godmother, but it was like the bubble,
the bubble,
the pink ribbon, the pink ribbon wrapping
pink bow,
like that's a very powerful tool as well, so there are, I suppose, there are things out there that we can use, but sometimes it's, as you said, sometimes we're asleep and we're kind of in the same environment and we're doing the same thing, that we don't actually realize that there are ways and means, you know, of changing, and it can be very soft and it can be very gentle. But it's like actually just like that, surrounding yourself with people, I think is very important, or being in a community that makes you feel good. And I think that's a big thing with me as well, is like, you know, what lights me up or what doesn't light me up, and having the permission then, I suppose, to change and decide, okay, that's not for me. And it's not that I'm making a judgment on it and saying, you know, if people enjoy it, that's perfect. That's, they're getting and enjoying it and having, but it's like, it's okay. I suppose it's a lovely thing. Is I think sometimes is, I suppose, I'm not saying being a feminist or a woman, but sometimes we kind of like to fit in, and we kind of, I suppose every human being like likes to belong. And sometimes we don't like to step out of things because we're afraid we'll upset people, or how we'll be perceived. But it's so important that we're only here once, you know, as we are. And it's so important that we are true to ourselves and we're happy ourselves, because I find the more content you are and the happier you are, well, then it just ripples out into the home and into the community.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. That lovely ripple effect. Yeah. Very good. Very good.
So, we were talking earlier as well, and you were saying about freedom.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I love what you said about freedom, is that it can be so gentle, you know, and that sometimes people don't realize, I suppose, that it can be, you know, such a simple thing. Like as you said, it could be just like a simple shift. It could be even taking one of these tools, and a relationship or situation or something that was previously triggering you. And it's like, you know, if you're, you know, it's like giving somebody poison or drinking poison yourself and thinking you're one hurting, you know, that people don't realize that we give our power away so much to other events and other situations and other things, and realizing that even, you know, using one little tool or one technique, that actually we can have great freedom from certain things in our life very easily. um but as you said, sometimes we're unconscious of that and we don't realize that these things are out there. And it's lovely to see, I suppose, inside in Positive Recombobulators, because it's a little bit like, I suppose, seeing my journey now as well, how I came in, you know, into Positive Recombobulators, and seeing, learning, I suppose, layering on all these tools and all these techniques, and realizing, you know, when people get the light bulb moment, or they're coming back and saying, oh, you know, they're sharing beautiful stories, and it can be so simple. And that's what I love about it. It can be, I suppose, that we realize that we can let a lot of stuff go that we thought we had to hold on to, that, you know, weren't serving us. And it's just, there's such great freedom in it. And it's so beautiful to see. Like, what I love about it is, if I need a hit me, you know, or a good feel hit, if you go in, like some of the you know, some of the members are fabulous. Like some of the poems that people have been putting in there, some of the, it's just
Yeah.
been fabulous. It really, really has. Like, I suppose, do you sometimes realize, you know, or like, does it take, like, how do you feel, I suppose, when you reflect every now and again on it? And I suppose, do you see the big impact that it has had on people?
You know, that's a great question, Irene, because I've had to stop and kind of ask myself that at times. And to be honest, it's almost like, and you'll really get this because you're a nurse. You know, the way when you're on duty in the hospital, and when you're holding space for an environment, or people in an environment where there is a lot of, you know, in hospitals it's trauma and can be physical trauma. And when I'm holding space for, okay, I mean 7,000 people aren't on live every morning, but I'm holding space for hundreds of people every day. Okay, so if I was to really tune into the impact, it probably would overwhelm me so much that I don't know if I could function really that cognitively, you know, in a straight line. And it's a bit like, you know, as I say, when you're in a hospital environment, when you're on duty and you're doing your work, you're in the zone, you're in the flow, and you absolutely know you can hold space for people, and it feels so comfortable, so real, so fabulous. And then you might meet somebody that you'd nursed, or I often did anyway, people that definitely, babies I delivered, and people I would have nursed in ICU that were unconscious all the time, that were there. So I didn't really know them until they became, but they remembered me as a nurse, even though they were unconscious. And I would have met them outside afterwards. And when they'd say to you, oh my God, this had an impact, I literally would get so emotional, just like overwhelmed. Whereas if they said it to me in the hospital, it's almost like, it's not a protection, but like when I'm in positive recovery, I cannot really allow myself feel the impact that it's having, because if I did, I think I'd burst, to be honest. Because it is, and it's not necessarily the impact that I'm having, it's the impact that everybody's having on each other.
Hmm.
It's quite special. It's
It
really
really
quite
is.
special. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I've shared it with everybody in there anyway, and you all know it, that I find that the winter is very dark, and I would be inclined not like to turn over in the morning and kind of think, oh look, I'll do another half an hour, because I don't have to get up. I mean, I choose my own hours with work, but actually waking up at 7, actually before the clock at 7 every morning, all the way through the winter, and being excited about getting out of bed. I know that I'm in my jammies every morning when I'm chatting to you, but like to get up and to know I have to do something at 7:30 that excites me is just been a godsend for me so far going through the winter. It's just amazing. And by the way, anybody that's listening, I don't know who's on, who's not on. I say a lot of them are Week and Bobbers, but if anybody's listening, we will be doing the connections every morning up to Christmas Eve, Mondays to Fridays, just to say
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So
And that's
everybody's
lovely, and
welcome.
it is. And what's lovely is that if people do want to push over or snooze or turn over, if they're getting their
People can be in bed.
and that often happens to me, and I laugh then sometimes because people might say good morning to me, and it's when I see the notifications afterwards, because oftentimes I might be snoozing or it
Yeah,
might be on in the background as I'm getting the kids ready and organized. But I
yeah,
love that you can always put on replay, so you can listen to it in the car, or you can, and it's just, it's as you said, it's a lovely, it's a unique time as well, I suppose, because we're in lockdown, and plus the darker evenings as well and the longer nights. So it is a lovely thing, I suppose. It's
yeah.
a
I don't know if people would have given this type of work as much time if we didn't
yeah,
have lockdown. Not that I would be wishing lockdown on anybody, but the fact that we have lockdown, I think it has almost like people have felt that they have given themselves permission, the time to do that work on themselves, which to me is the ultimate. I mean, I think we all should do that regardless of how busy we are. I think it's really important that you take some time every day just to do some bit of reflection on something really important, or listen to something even while you're doing other stuff, while you're doing jobs, just to always have something, at least one touch point a day. I think it's really important.
I think we touched on that because I was, it's a lovely question that we ask, in between when a client session. It's like, what's changed or what's new. So I did that, before we had a talk. Sometimes it's nice to kind of just tune in, and I suppose just, it's a lovely concept as well, that everyone. I'm so excited for the girls that are in positive recombobulated, for the possibilities that's out there, for them. But it's self care, like you said, to have something, because sometimes it could be seen as a luxury or whatever belief you have or whatever way it's branded, but for me it's an essential. It's actually, if I don't take care of myself, well then how am I going to function, or how am I, because my roles are responsible, then how, and I know the version of me that shows up,
Mm.
that has minded myself versus the version that hasn't. And
Yeah,
it could be, just said, so simple, just having one touch point where you're, I suppose, giving to yourself, or developing yourself, or be it a podcast, or be it a book, or be it even a music, just something that
yeah,
inspires you, I think,
yeah.
and lifts you. It's just,
Yeah. And another thing that's really important on that too, and I know I say to people all the time that, some, like when people come in and they're really enjoying what they're getting from Positive Recombobers, or the things I teach, or all of you QTT practitioners teach the same stuff as well. And people might get tired of it for a while and then go and go to another teacher. And I love that. I'm not saying to go. What I'm saying is that, you come and fill up your cup. And then when you've had enough, I mean, I would have said that. I remember I often share this, that I found it really hard to listen to Esther Hicks. I didn't know what people were talking about. I found she irritated me. And of course, that was me. It was my reaction to, it's never the person, it's always your own reaction. So at least I had the cop on to know to go internally and have a look at that anyway. And then at one stage, I remember hearing her on some YouTube thing, and I thought, oh my God, and that really resonated. And then for a month, I couldn't get enough of her. And then I had enough of her. And then I went to listen to somebody else. So it's really important too that people don't feel, oh my God, I found positive recombobers now and that's the only thing. There's
yeah,
so much. There's so
yeah.
much. Go find other teachers that that inspire you, or that might even challenge you in the way you're thinking. And that's, to me, is always, if I'm listening to a teacher and I feel a bit of a trigger, I'm going, okay, this is brilliant, because there's something that I haven't worked on that this teacher is highlighting to me, because I'm getting irritated or frustrated. So that's an opportunity for me to have a little look and see what else I can let go of, so I can increase the freedom. Yeah.
And I love what you said there, because like when you let go, it's, you've space. So like what I like, your interest, it's nearly like your taste buds change for things, you know. And I was like, I have a book filled with, you know, I loved Louise Hay for a while. I loved Esther Hicks for a while. I loved Wayne Dwyer, you know, I loved, you know, and I go like that now. I'm binging on Gabby Bernstein. Didn't go for, you know, but it's what I love though, and I suppose I haven't probably shared it with you, it's like I can nearly hear your voice in the background or something I've read, and I'm like, you know, which is lovely. It's sometimes it's really nice to get something from another perspective.
Absolutely.
But it's like,
and Irene, it's really interesting because today I happened to come across a video of Gabor Mate. I don't know if you're familiar with Gabor Mate, an incredible doctor, physician, and then he worked a lot with addiction and whatever. I could never listen to him because he's quite droly and he always looks like he's half asleep. And just something came across today and I just listened to it. And I was going, oh my God, I need to put this into QTT, because when you listen to him, I've never listened to him before. It's almost like he's teaching concepts of QTT and what he was saying. It was just coming from another angle, and it's what he used. And it's just like, he was describing how he is in a session, like the way I teach all of you to be in a session. And he said, I felt a tightness in my body and I knew it had become about me. I knew I was now in the agenda. So I was putting my stuff in the session, which is, for anybody who's ever had a QTT session, it's never about the practitioner, it's always about the client. So you're all taught to be in that space where you literally are curious, so curious that you're getting into the world of the client, because that's the only way you can help them. So we don't have our own agenda in it. But the way he described it, I was going, oh my God, this is, you know, so, you know, there you go. And he's a guy I could never listen to. And then I just happened to come across that today. But it's the same principle coming from somebody that I'd never heard before. He's never heard me, but he's getting brilliant results. And we're all getting brilliant results with clients as well. So it just goes to show. Yeah.
It does. It really, really does.
Yeah.
Some of the comments have just been lovely. You know, they're all
not even watching. I'm very bold.
Yeah, I just
so we'll say hello to everyone. Oh my God, there's loads of comments.
Yeah.
Katrina, Linda, and Molly, and Sharon, and Harriet, Regina. How are you all? Ev, Sarah.
It's lovely to see.
Lovely. Loads of Rican Bobbers there too.
Yeah,
fabulous,
it is.
Fabulous.
And it's exactly, it's lovely. It really is. It's just, as you said, when you see the names and you see the familiar faces, even, you know, it's just gorgeous, isn't it? You know, and that's something that I really treasure as well, because, you know, I was even sharing with you, you know, it's even, you know, sisters, friends, you know, even work colleagues are in there, and it's so nice because they're getting such a value out of it, and plus they're adding to the community as well. And I suppose the comment I said this morning about QTT, because I suppose what people were kind of putting in, it was like we were talking about different concepts this morning, and one was about the topic was about bullying, and you were saying that someone commented that these practices should be taught in school, and I wholeheartedly agree. I suppose sometimes we're never taught properly to use our senses, or how we actually are taking the word, like what this is all about, and how, you know, that as you said, it's never about what's happening, it's always your perception of it. So it's always
reaction to it. Absolutely.
Reaction to it. And it's just even the freedom of that, and realizing, like, even just that little step back can just give you that space and that opportunity, you know. And I would say, you know, it's like a manual for being a good and kind and just a genuine human being. Because I think, and I suppose is one of my fundamental beliefs, you know, and I know people, but it is, I think we're all born inherently good, you know. Sometimes
actually there is scientific research to prove that, Irene, just so you know.
Because and I would often say, you know, I suppose maybe it's the nursing aspect and things like that, you know. It would be something I'd always say, like, with anyone, I'd always imagine them like a baby, a newborn baby, you know. If I'm finding something really, really hard, and I'd often say, I suppose, because I'm not trained in midwife, but it's the most beautiful experience when you see a baby being born. I remember I loved my midwifery, and I suppose I loved my 3 children, and even, you know, babies born every minute, like I'm getting goosebumps. Like every baby, you know, that everyone, no matter what age they were, somebody, you know, everyone's somebody, someone at some time, no matter what happened along the way. So it's and unfortunately, because of whatever situations or life events or other things that have gone on, and the humans that are raising them, or the environment they're in, I suppose it's not your responsibility sometimes of what happens to you, but it's, I suppose, your responsibility as you get older, kind of how you deal with it and how you show up then, you know. And a lot of people don't realize that, but I think it's such a beautiful thing that, you know, these principles are simple, but you know, when you see everyone that's inside their book saying it's such a lovely thing that people don't realize, you know, that we can. I suppose everyone wants to be the best they can be. I suppose we all do, and sometimes we beat ourselves up. And I love what you said about, you know, forgiveness. And I think a really important thing is being so kind to yourself and
Yes.
knowing that you really were doing the best that you are with the, you know, with the resources that you had, and you know, at that time. But like, when you know better, you do better, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I know you were saying there about, you know, that we're responsible. What was it? What way did you put it there? That we're not responsible for or about the resources that we have within us at that time. Absolutely. And you know, it is very true that we're not responsible necessarily for how we react to something at that time. But as we grow older, yes, we do have a responsibility, but it's actually to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
To free ourselves, rather than being, oh, I have a responsibility now to be a good girl and forgive everybody and la la la, and then we get all a bit, you know, peed off about it. But it's not even that. It's about, really, forgiveness starts with ourselves. Forgiveness is all about setting ourselves free. It's not about letting other people off the hook. It's absolutely not about that. But the responsibility is to ourselves. And when we do take that responsibility and we're living from a completely different space, it has such a massive ripple effect on everybody around us. And some people will get ticked off because you're not the moaning Minnie that you were, or you're not the one that was, you know, wanting to get into the gossiping. And I know I spoke about that on the masterclass the other night. So between gossiping and forgiveness this morning and bullying, you know, we have brought up a lot this week about other ways of looking at all of these things, and also looking at it from the perspective of the greater good. So how could these things be approached so that they're not such a problem, you know? And I know that people say, you know, and I know you mentioned it there about going into the schools. I definitely feel that you know, the quicker and the more efficient way really is to approach it through other parents, rather than, I think, schools and institutions, much and all, as I know amazing teachers and I know amazing people that are in institutions, but it's very difficult to shift or move or create change within an institution, because it's just so, it's that sort of hierarchical structure that is more of a masculine energy, which isn't a man energy. It's masculine energy. It's very different. And it actually is very difficult to actually create any change in that. So I prefer to go at it from the other angle and just meet the kids where they're at, and, you know, through the parents. And there's loads of work that can be done. There's loads of QTTers doing great work with kids. And it's not within schools. Yeah,
exactly. And it is, and even, you know, for anyone that's in here, is even them being a parent and teaching to their children, it's lovely, you know, because they'll be showing up in a totally different way. And plus, I suppose I had to come to my early 30s to unlearn a lot of stuff. But it was lovely because I've really enriched myself. I suppose that's probably what I unconsciously chose, to kind of go through and kind of let go, so to create freedom and create space. But it's even better now, I think, when you can hold that space for the younger generation that's coming up, so that they can really make wise decisions and just live. I think, like as I'm sitting here now, I suppose I share, like, I am just in my heart space, you know, and it's the most beautiful thing to be in, and I'm in it much more. And I think it's when you're using all the principles and the concepts that you can just be sitting in it and just feel unconditional love, or just feel that lovely feeling. And it's the most beautiful thing to be in. And I think that's what I love about, I suppose, the positive recombobulators. That's what I love about the whole QTT. It's just, you know, when you're in that space, people just, you feel so good within yourself, and the way you respond, the way you think, and even the way people respond to you, it's in a much more, I suppose, serving way, isn't it? You know, and that's great freedom.
And what makes it easy to go into it, Irene, is because you've done so much work to release what was actually in there blocking you from feeling it. So the more we release and the more work we do on it, and when I say work, it sounds like it's hard. It's not, guys. It's so easy. It's so easy and so gentle. And you can go through old stuff or stories or any of that carry on. It's absolutely not necessary. Yeah.
Sometimes you see, I suppose, you know, the whole concept of beliefs, people think that's who they are, but it's actually, you know, or a temperament, you know, like someone, like as you said, wasn't born cross, but like they probably, something happened to that was their reaction, and then they've developed that temperament that they don't know how to change or shift, that's what they're stuck in. And even belief systems, I think a lot of, we haven't really touched on that. It's a lot of my belief systems probably were down to probably self-worth, or this is the way I was. So it was shifting those beliefs and realizing what ones were serving me or not. Like sometimes I laugh, when I see what I'm doing, but I suppose I have a huge passion and a drive as well to kind of get this message across, and I suppose to serve people that there are other ways to live and there's other ways to be. But I laugh and giggle sometimes at thinking of the version of me sitting there, like literally like a swan with my legs flying under the water, going, how can I cope with life? Literally, I was just head above water. And to realize now, that I have created, the Willow Circle, and I have this practice here, and I'm still, in my nursing role and my mom role. And I suppose what I love about it is, the relationships I have now mean so much more to me, because don't get me wrong, but it was all, I suppose, how I was interpreting them and how I was in the dynamics of them. And by doing my own internal stuff and figuring out what is going on here, or what's the real reason, just a massive freedom. And then by me shifting and changing, well then, and it wasn't for them to change or shift, but then the response, the relationship, how we communicate is completely different. It's just
Well, that point that you're making, which is another one point that I often teach, is that if you try to change everybody outside of you to create your happiness, that's going to be exhausting, first of all. But actually, even if everybody changes, you can never be that happy, because if there's something not fundamentally not right on the inside, it just needs to be changed. When I say change, tweaked, different perception, released on something, see it from another paradigm, be open to change, make new choices. There's so many things that you can do to get that shift or that change. And it doesn't have to be hard. It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't. And like even looking at all the lovely comments, someone's putting up, I'm just going to read through them because we're way over time. But Linda O'Leary, hip hooray for recombobulator, and someone's put up about the penguins. And I love that analogy. And I actually use the analogy of Care Bears. I love the Care Bears, when we're connecting with our heart space. I'm just going through. Yeah, so it's just.
Oh, that's lovely, lovely, lovely comments. I can see you on, and that's gorgeous. The impact, and actually saying the impact that I'm having on your life is amazing. Actually, you're the one that's creating the impact. I'm just talking. You're the one that's doing the work. Just remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so true, isn't it? The people don't realize, because sometimes, they would, and owning it, isn't it, for the people to own it, that they didn't have to do it. They didn't have to show up or want, but like to own that they've done, incredible work.
Yeah.
So is there any parting comments you'd like to leave with, or is there anything you'd like to share, or anything we haven't touched on?
Not particularly that I can think of, no, unless anybody wants to ask anything, but I don't have anything specific that want to just see if there's anything here. Rita's saying there, if QTT didn't work, would you recommend going to someone else or going back to the original person? What I would say, Rita, is QTT always works. So I know that sounds very arrogant now, and I don't mean it to sound arrogant. It always does. Maybe what you need to do is talk to the person that you worked with and go and find specifically what you worked on and go back and notice how that specific thing has changed. But there may be a lot of other things that you want to work on as well. But obviously, I don't know I haven't got the full context of what you're saying. But it's not possible, particularly if you had a release technique, there's never once ever been anybody that didn't get a result from a release technique. So I would say to you, and if you feel, the person that you work with, if you'd like to try and work with somebody different, go for it. Absolutely go for it, Rita. But you can always give a bit more context. I don't know. I think you're also in Positive Recombobulation. If you give a bit more context, I might be able to guide you a bit more. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds,
Is there any other question? I don't see anything. Pop a question in quickly if anybody wants to.
Anyone has it, yeah.
Trina's saying you'd love QTT for your kids. Here's the thing, Trina. Of course, absolutely. It'd be wonderful to guide your kids to live in a certain way. So one of the big things I would say for kids was, well, and even for my own boys, and believe me, I didn't get parenting right. But I got it right a lot of the time, but not all the time, the same as any human being. But one thing I've learned, I suppose, further on now, and my oldest boy is 26. One thing I did that was amazing was that I always allowed my kids make their own decisions, obviously in a container. So I always gave them a lot of leeway in relation to, because I think the kids, first of all, are so not used to disappointment and don't know how to overcome it. So that was one thing. So I allowed them make decisions, so that in partly in the hope that they would sometimes make a mistake in a decision so that they'd learn from it, but always would hold that in a container. But also I think too that kids often would say, you know, particularly teenagers, can I go here? Can I go there? Can I this? Can I that? What they're doing is they're asking you for permission to go. However, if something happens, then they say, well, you said I could go. So I would always say to the boys, we're going to kind of do this in a bit of a leeway thing. So I'm going to say to you, you make the decision first, but you need to evaluate the consequences of your decision up front. So if you make the decision and you go ahead and do the thing, and whatever the outcome is, that you're happy to take responsibility for that. And believe me, a lot of decisions that they were forcing me because they wanted me to give them permission to do things, a lot of the time they go, oh, actually, I'm not so sure about that now. So I just think that was one of a really important thing for parenting. But the other thing with QTT and kids, yeah, teach them little concepts and teach them how to do things like that, like make their own decisions, etc. However, you know, a lot of people would say, I'm so worried about that my child is going to be traumatized because I kept saying this and that and the other to them. And I'd say to the lads, chillax, okay, just let yourselves off the hook. Nobody parents perfectly. No child comes out of the manual. You know, we're all, I mean, if I had another go at it now, I'd feel I'd do a much better job. But the big thing I think for kids is, as long as they feel loved, that's going to make the biggest impact on them. And also, I think we have to be very careful about wanting to make everything right and perfect for them, because you're really going to step in the way of them learning and evolving and growing and building that resilience muscle. And I know an awful lot of you know the story about my Connor, who's our youngest, who had very bad social anxiety for 18 years. And I knew, but I had to step back and allow him to ask me for help. And that was very difficult as a mum, very, very difficult, because it was crippling. And he did a beautiful interview, I don't know if any of you saw it, where he described it. I'm sitting on the couch beside him. He's even saying things that I didn't even quite know in that interview, but where he describes what life was like being like that. But also when I stepped in to say, I can help you, he would actually clamp up and he describes it. So it's not always okay for us as parents, I feel, and then this is just my opinion, to jump in and to try and fix and to try and, you know, make their lives completely perfect. A good few mistakes is no harm. And often you'll end up with kids that are a lot more balanced when they've made a lot of mistakes and things have been hard or difficult or hurt, or, you know, there were a couple of things that the boys did that I wasn't happy about, that didn't fit with our values. And did I try and go in and relieve their shame? I absolutely did not. I let them sit in it, because, you know, how are they ever going to learn if you fix everything and make everything right? And particularly if it's stuff that I didn't necessarily agree with, I had to be very clear on what my values on certain things. And they're far from perfect, by the way, all three of them.
Which is lovely, and I love that, because it reminds, actually, when we were having our conversation, we were chatting about this, about especially my mom, and even, you know, there was another. I love, you know, there's no failures, only feedback. So if you can sit and if they can, you know, if they can say what they've learned, you know what I mean, you know, rather than saying, you know, I'm sorry, or I won't do that again, or, you know, they're words, but if they're backed up with a meaning, where you can sit in that energy, as you said, allowing them to, like, giving them the decision to make their decision, you know, make and live with the consequences of their, you know, of the choices that they've made. But equally, when stuff happens, you know, that they can have, I suppose, realize that, you know, well, what won't I do again, you know, or what will I do differently the next time? And I think that's amazing, because we've all learned that as teenager, you know, going through that. There's things that, you know, I wouldn't have done, you know, but it's giving that space. And I, you know, there's been once or twice where I've used that, and rather than, you know, getting into an argument or a big blow up, or, you know, you hurt me and I hurt, you know, when you can kind of sit down and say, tell me what have you learned from what has happened. And then it's just so amazing, because you're like, you know, I won't be there always, you know, I won't be in their ear, you know, or I, you know, and the thing is, you want them to grow and they'll, please God, be parents themselves, or in responsible jobs or roles, that they'll be able to, on the spot, auto correct or learn from things, you know. And I suppose as human beings, that's what we learn and grow and evolve. It's a lot of time through experiences. And I know there was one particular incident with one of my children, and I remember being at the table, and I remember it was just like, as you said, that person, you know, was feeling the feelings of being crap and whatever was going on. But once they were able to kind of realize it was just so freeing that we didn't have to have a drama in the house for the whole week. And I'm right, you're, this whole thing, because both of us were right, both of us had this, but for that individual to, from one of my children to be able to call it back to me and say it was so lovely to be able to have the tools. And I'm so thankful that that lesson didn't have to happen again, if that makes sense, and I'm so glad that person, I don't want to call them up, but I'm so glad that person got the lesson the first time, because sometimes, look, it's like cycling a bike, and there's things that we do, or, we didn't learn to just stand up and walk either, we did have to fall or fail at a few things before we got things right. But I think, it's like Thomas Edison with the light bulb, it was 999 ways of not creating the light bulb, but he got there in the end. But he learned, and he said in every single one of those, there was a lesson,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's it. And it is, I do find I use the QTT a lot with the kids. Even the bubble is a lovely thing for the kids to use going into school, I think, to have them, to give them that. Yeah, I'm just seeing if there's any more comments now.
I'm after saying that Keith Barry used QTT on our day. I know he definitely didn't use QTT, Trina, but he probably used something similar, some of the like neurolinguistics or something like that, because QTT is only taught by me, and I certainly didn't teach him. Regina's saying the cheek of him. Although I like Keith Barry, I like him. He's really cool. He uses he definitely has NLP, definitely. I know he uses that.
Yeah, so somebody was asking about explaining the bubble, but if you go in, I suppose, if you're in Positive Recombobulators, we actually do it every morning, Trina, but it's just, it's really connecting back into that lovely heart space and heart center, and just connecting right down and grounding into the heart of Mother Earth, bringing it back into your heart and kind of coming up. I love it at the point at the back of the head, because this is our part of our brain where we have all our thoughts. You're actually back here where you're observing them. So it's even that is a little bit of a beautiful, like little light bulb, kind of realizing, well, I'm actually not my thoughts, or I'm not, I'm stepping back from them, and then coming back into your heart space. And then what you do is you fill your body with a color.
Yes.
And then you expand, you count 1, 2, 3, and you make that lovely noise, Moira.
Yes, whoop.
And you expand it out like a bubble. And I think it's lovely because it's a container. I use it with my clients. I do a meditation, or I give them a recording of whatever color that we use in the session. And I think it's a lovely thing to be in, because you have permission for this space around you, because a lot of the time you can feel encroached, or people are on top of you, whereas if you in that bubble, and it's lovely because with kids it's like they're in their little spacesuit, or something has happened, for any, if they have a little bit of anxiety for leaving you, or they're missing you, or anything like that, they can realize that, hang on a minute, I can just tune into, you can tell them, you think of a lovely memory when you're with me, or think of your dog or pet or whatever they love, and just say, give that lovely feeling now a color, and just fill your body with it, and then just give it out like a bubble. So it's
I'm just thinking, I can't remember if it's in, I don't think, is it in the Positivity Project? So if anybody is on and they're looking for some little mini techniques, the 7-Day Positivity Project is full of techniques, and you'll find that on moirageary.com / and then it's POSPROJ, so Positivity Project. So, and that's 7 days of free trainings, and there's lots of tips in that, loads. The pink bows.
I might get the link off you, and I can always edit this video afterwards, and I can put it in.
Absolutely.
They're lovely. They are, and as I said, I love even the names of it, the bubble, and it is a nice thing. I use it for work, and I use it a lot. So the comments have been fabulous. And it's lovely to see all familiar names and familiar faces joining us. And it's lovely that you popped in here and shared your Friday evening with us, and gave, I suppose.
What else should we be doing in lockdown, huh?
I was laughing at Ev. I was like, Ev, you're off the hook. So Evelyn Woodward is on that. And she said, I can't wait to sit down and relax and have a glass of wine in my hand and just watch it from the other side. But no, thank you. I really, really genuinely, I suppose it was something that came into my head a couple of weeks ago, just to ask people to come on, just, I suppose, share it, because, even though it's been a shitty year, we'll say, excuse the French, like, Positive Recombobulation probably wouldn't be what it is. It was always fabulous anyway, but like, and it just goes to show, I suppose, the world is really ready for change, and the world is really ready to live from a space that's not so, and to realize that, yeah, that there is another way to live, you know, and you can have permission to do it if that's what you want, you know.
Yeah, just join the crew and get in. And like all of you practitioners as well, people follow Irene, follow Ev, follow, you know, anybody else that's Regina's on there. I don't know who else is on there as a practitioner, but there's loads of them. We've over 100 practitioners at the moment.
Yeah, Mary Carmody, who's a nutritionist, she'll be on in a few weeks as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot. Yeah, there are, you know, and it's lovely because I suppose I touched base with a few of my clients just telling them this was on, and it's amazing that, you know, there are so many resources out there for people. And, you know, as you said, a lot of people can be saying the same message, you know, when you're reading books and things, but it's who you're resonating with at the time, which I love. And I love that. I suppose with QTT, you know, when I was sitting in there, you know, there was just a nutritionist, there was somebody that went for, that was involved in politics, there was a driving instructor, there was alternative therapies, there was a teacher, there was career guidance teacher, there was a makeup artist. It was fabulous, you know, to kind of see, you know, that, and it worked in every,
You
you
can
know,
apply it in every walk of life.
yeah. And I think it's lovely because it opens even the positive recombobulation. Sometimes we can be so stuck in, you know, the people we're around, that sometimes it's so nice to kind of open yourself up to new people and new possibilities. And it's just beautiful. It really, really is, you know.
Yeah. Yes, it
So
is.
thank you for
You're very
coming
welcome, my darling. You're very welcome. Delighted and loved chatting to you and loved having loads of people on, which is nice too.
Yeah, and it's lovely, all the lovely comments. So I can read through them later, and I might just get that, the Positivity Project, just to have the link that
I
if people
think
want to
most
go on
people
it. Yeah,
probably have it already, but there might be other people that might like to have it.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Irene, and I shall be talking to you soon anyway, I'm sure. Yeah.
We'll come out.
As you know, as a QTTer, that you never get away from me, because a lot of people probably don't realize that once you're in and you're trained, you can come back and repeat as often as you like, and I never let you go, because I need you to make sure that you're upskilled and that you know what you're doing and that you're supported and minded. So yeah, so that's really cool. So I'll
And I
chat to
suppose
you.
that's a lovely thing as well, that I find, as you said, there's always things to add in, isn't there? There's always things to grow and evolve, and that's a lovely thing, that there's no, oh, I'll be fixed now. You know, it's actually just a lovely journey, and it's lovely unfolding, as opposed to a final destination point.
That's it. Yeah.
So thank you. So I'll stop the time. So thanks everyone.
Love to everybody.
Take care.
Yeah.